Hello and welcome to another episode of Morgana Radio, where I, your host, Morgana Ray, interview the world's most fascinating thought leaders on money, love, and magic. And today's topic is 3 ancient secrets to creating success in your entrepreneurial business. You will learn what you need to make money a spiritual practice. You will learn how to keep money flowing by enjoying what you make, and you will learn how to generate real prosperity by helping others. Our guest today is my longtime friend who I deeply admire, Jill Hendrickson. Jill is a best-selling author, and she is the karmic therapist. She's the founder of Karmic Coaching. Jill is a former Capitol Hill reporter who worked for the world's biggest financial newspaper. And after studying with an enlightened master in India and discovering an ancient Buddhist text, she overcame her own contradictory feelings towards money. And as she has made more and more money, she has shifted to helping other conscious business people create success using these ancient principles of cause and effect. Welcome, Jill.
Hi, Morgana. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to see you.
My pleasure. So I am fascinated. How did you come across these principles? What was your life like before, and what happened afterwards? Please tell us your story.
Yeah, so what happened was I was working in Japan as a journalist, sort of using my left brain. Really didn't have any interest in spirituality or anything like that. But I ended up getting married. The marriage was very difficult. It was actually an abusive marriage. And I was kind of scrambling around looking for some way to survive this and feel good. So I took myself to a meditation intensive one weekend and just had this mind-blowing experience of going out of my body and flying through the stars toward the big white light and wind going by me and stars flying by me. And when I finally came back, I was just totally shocked to find myself sitting in this darkened room amongst a couple hundred people meditating in silence. And so it was such a shocking, scary, and exhilarating experience that suddenly I realized that the spiritual master in charge of it, who wasn't even in Tokyo at the time, she was in India, I realized that this is my spiritual master, although I had never been looking for one. And so I took myself to India, began a long journey of studying with this amazing master, a woman, by the way. And in being in the ashram experience, I first encountered Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and abundance. I had never seen anything like that before and kind of fell in love with her. I didn't realize as a Westerner how many contradictory feelings I had about making money, and especially because my husband had made a lot of money. I realized I had a negative attachment or feeling about it because I could do a lot of things with it, but it had brought a lot of pain into my life. So I went through this very long, difficult divorce, and I feel that the connection with Lakshmi helped me to get a good settlement. But afterwards, I didn't know how to manage the money. The stock market went up and down. I lost a lot of it. And I had decided not to be a journalist anymore because that felt a little bit too kind of like focusing on the negative. I had gone through a couple healing schools. I wanted to be a healer. I wanted to be a writer and just make it as a spiritual entrepreneur. Well, having been in that world a lot, for myself and for a lot of people that I know that are spiritual entrepreneurs, it is sometimes very, very difficult. And this was a new thing for me because I'd always been successful at what I was doing. I was like a straight A student, always did well, and suddenly I didn't know how to do this. So I took a lot of trainings. There was a lot more to it than I thought there would be. And I was going into my savings and losing more and more and more money. Meanwhile, the stock market was doing its thing. And so it was very curious to me how Lakshmi could come in my life and create this abundance and then like it was going away. And I thought, is the universe against me? Does God hate me? Am I just doing it wrong and I'm not meant to do this? So at a point when it just had gotten to where I was starting to feel quite hopeless, I suddenly sort of shifted a little bit my approach to what I was doing. And very shortly after that, I came across this ancient Buddhist text. Now, I wasn't a Buddhist, so I'm on the yogic path, but this text resonated with me. And I found an updated version of it. It has a long name in Sanskrit, which is something, if I can remember it correctly, it's the Arya Vajra Pranya Nama Mahayana, something or other. And it's usually translated into the Diamond Cutter Sutra. What was shocking to me, I started using some of these principles in it. What was really shocking to me about it was that word Vajra, which is usually translated into diamond, also means thunderbolt. And I remembered being in India and going to this temple near my teacher's ashram called the Vajreshwari Temple. And that means Lady of the Thunderbolt. And literally that experience that I told you about in meditation where I'd gone out of my body had felt like being hit by lightning. I always described it as that. But I realized it was also like getting hit by the thunderbolt. So I knew that this text was for me. And I started applying some of the things in it. And amazingly, after all these years of struggling and struggling and struggling as a spiritual entrepreneur, or whatever you want to call that, a conscious business owner, I started generating money, like fast, and in a way that I hadn't. So I looked deeper into this text. I kind of boiled it down for my own use, and then I wanted to start sharing that with other people. Because I've seen a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs struggling quite a bit. And I felt like I'd found something new, kind of the missing link for me.
Well, I love this. I was a religion major in college. My specialty was Buddhism.
Ah.
So, and what's wonderful about Buddhism is for those of you watching or listening and you have your own religious path, it's fine because Buddhism is so... you don't have to believe in Buddha as your God. It's not that kind of a religion. There are fundamental philosophical principles that I think are just true for human beings and easily adopted. So what, if you were to extract your wisdom of the Diamond Cutters Sutra for spiritual entrepreneurs, what is the first principle?
Well, if I could just backtrack a little bit, I wanted to say that the book actually comes from a dialogue of the Buddha with one of his students over 2,500 years ago. And it's interesting what you said about Buddhism, because even though he had that dialogue that long ago, like you said, the wisdom goes back much further than that. This just happened to be a dialogue that was captured and put into print. And that book that I mentioned is, I think, the oldest printed book around.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite amazing. So the first principle, I would say, is make money. And to go a little bit further with that, it's make money your spiritual practice. For Westerners, I think a lot of people in the West have this contradictory feeling about making money. So especially if you're involved in anything spiritual, it's kind of like you might have one foot on the accelerator trying to make your business work, and then without even knowing it, you've got a foot on the brake. So no wonder you can't go anywhere, because it just comes to a standstill. So making money your spiritual practice, to me, means a lot of different things, but part of it is just to welcome that opportunity to make money, because like it or not, at least in my experience, I needed a lot of money to pursue my spiritual studies. I needed to go visit my teacher in India. I needed to have the time to go visit my teacher in India. I needed to be able to get my plane fare. I needed to pay for my expenses when I was there. And I was also taking a lot of courses and being in a lot of trainings. The other thing is that with money, you can help a lot more people than without money. And, you know, there's a saying that money is round so it can circulate. So you're really doing a great service in the world when you're getting more money into the system and helping. You have the possibility of helping a lot of people when you're making money.
So I have a question. When you say that the first principle is make money, is that making money itself is spiritual, or use the money for spiritual things, or make money in a spiritual way? What do you mean by make money a spiritual practice?
Well, we have to make money to live. Almost everybody does. So you might as well have a positive attitude towards it. Otherwise, without knowing it, you're going to be in resistance, and you won't be welcoming it into your life, and so it won't make a home in your life. And it's not that you have to consciously be in a business that is like, I don't know, not a charity, but that you have to be actively helping people. But something about what you're doing is helping people. I don't know if I can think of any kind of business that's not in some way. I mean, the funeral business, people are helping somebody who's in a difficult time. If you're selling stuff, you're selling things that people need that make their lives better. And it actually reminds me of something that they talked about at my teacher's ashram, which was that the world is kind of like what we can call the Lord's Club. And at the Lord's Club, everybody gets fed, but you get fed with these really, really long spoons that are so long that you can't pick it up yourself. So somebody else has to pick up the spoon and feed you, and you likewise have to hold the spoon for somebody else. So in some way, shape, or form, to view our work in the world, whatever it is, as contributing, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah. Well, I made a decision beginning of 2013. Oh, sorry, wrong decade. At the beginning of 2003. When I was having my own inner transformation with money, that money had to be my next area of spiritual growth, simply because that was the aspect of life that I was the most uncomfortable with and the most avoidant around. So it still stretches me and grows me, but for me, it also has to be in alignment with my values, or I don't make any money. So the first principle is make money. It is a spiritual practice. Make money.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where so many people get tripped up, and especially if we're doing anything that feels like it's in the spiritual realm. Because, in certain texts, we probably are familiar with money as the root of all evil, or in our families, you might have heard, do you think money grows on trees? Do you think I'm made of money? And all those things go in there. And part of what karmic coaching is about the mental imprints, the mental impressions that we have. All those things go into our heads and create like almost a little etching in there. And the more we hear those, the more it's ingrained in us. So we have to be aware that maybe that's not the truth, and consciously be kind of working against that. To help us to accept money, to let it flow into our lives the way that it really wants to. Yeah. And I also think there's an attitude that there's a limit to money. So, everybody's scrambling for it. And maybe even some people have this feeling like, well, if I make so much, then there's less for these people. But that's just not true. It's actually that the more that you generate, the more is out there for others to enjoy and be part of.
Beautiful. So that's principle number one, and I believe we have 3 secrets. So what is number 2?
Number 2 is enjoy your money. Now that may seem like a no-brainer, but when you really look closely, you'd be surprised at how many people don't enjoy their money. And so there are 2 parts of that I want to talk about. One is simply if you don't enjoy your money and welcome it into your life, it's not going to make a home in your life. You'll actually be putting up a barrier to it coming in. And the other part is so many people practically kill themselves trying to make money. If it's ruining your family life, if you're ruining your health, if you don't get enough sleep, if you're so wrapped up in it that you're having mental problems, if it interferes with your spiritual life, then that's not a good thing. So it's partly like taking care of ourselves, making the money in a healthy way is really, really important. And that's all part of being able to enjoy it.
Beautiful. Yeah. The more pain we have associated with money, the more reason we have to unconsciously push it away. Mm-hmm. And what is principle number 3?
Principle number 3 is spread it around. Like I said before, money is round, so it can circulate. At least Coins used to be the more common type of money. But a deeper meaning of that is that instead of just focusing on yourself and your need to make money, focus on making other people successful. And that's the thing that was so key in my own money turnaround. I realized that I was stressing out so much trying to run a business because I'd never done it before. I really didn't know how to do it. I was a journalist. I'd worked for companies where I went in and I did my job as a journalist. So the whole business thing was new to me, and I didn't realize how much there was to learn. And so I found myself stressing out, just worried about being able to make the money and make the ends meet. And that kind of is backwards. As soon as I really focused, and it happened naturally right before I found this book, I'd started focusing on just really giving my clients a great experience and getting very involved in wanting to do the best job for them. And that is when I discovered these principles, and that's one of the things that it pretty much referred to in that book, and it changes everything.
So I'm curious about this. I told you, I studied Buddhism and Hinduism extensively in college, so I love this stuff. And most Westerners perceive Buddhism as being renunciant, renunciant of worldly goods. How do you address that? The Buddha says life is suffering. So why are you living in this beautiful living room? How can you be spiritual? How do you address that?
Well, because Lakshmi's all about abundance and wealth. And as one of the interesting things was when I first encountered her, it was I could finally allow myself to really indulge in loving my clothes and having, some great jewelry and making my house look and feel great. So that was a revelation. I didn't have to feel guilty about it. And then I'm not an expert in Buddhism. This book coming into my life is kind of a new thing, but I'll share with you that using these same principles, a small company that was started with only $50,000 in loans went on to make $100 million a year with offices around the globe. And I think I just recently read they were making $250 million a year with the help of a Buddhist monk. So that's kind of ironic, right?
Yeah. Well, neither Buddhism nor Christianity or Judaism actually teaches that money is the root of all evil. In fact, that quote is a mistranslation of the ancient Aramaic. It never actually said that.
Thank you. I always kind of wondered about that.
And Buddhism never said money is evil. It's just attachment to anything that makes you suffer.
Well put. And also, I think it's more the greed that's the part that's the evil, right? Mm-hmm. It's amassing money only for yourself, which is never satisfying anyway.
Well, and the core belief in Buddhism, and why I like it so much, is the notion that happiness and enlightenment does not exist without compassion for others. Nobody gets to go off and be liberated and while others are suffering. That wisdom and compassion are essentially the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think people find that when they finally get on the spiritual path, it's just part and parcel of it. And that's probably why so many people that we know nowadays are wanting to be what we could call spiritual entrepreneurs. They've found a spiritual path, they've gained a lot from it, they want to share it, and then they find this stumbling block about they've got to make money in order to spread the word and help other people if that's what they want to do. And then they start running into this conflict with money.
Yeah, and really, truly, if the healers of the world don't make any money, we lose our healers.
Exactly. So it's really our duty in a lot of ways to make money, not only to give ourselves a good life, but to be able to help others, to be able to do our work, to be able to spread our message, and to be a role model for that.
Absolutely.
For being able to make money and make it a good thing.
Thank you. So for the conscious entrepreneurs who are listening today, what is their next step for doing well while doing good?
Okay, so we really have to be conscious of our thoughts because it's the thoughts that we have that create these mental impressions that are going to take us down the wrong road. One of the things that you can do, you can be like the old Tibetan monks and go out. They would use rocks and put them in a different pocket according to what kind of thought came up. But you can go out and get one of those day planners or a little daily diary and divide it so that 3 times during the morning, before noon, and then 3 times after noon, you check in with yourself any negative thought that you've had about anything or anyone. Now, in the beginning, it's going to be rather daunting because the average person thinks a lot of negative thoughts about a lot of things during the day. Because actually, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I've heard many, many times that the negative messages we pick up a lot faster than the other ones. And that can go back to when we're just a little baby and the mother says to help us and to protect us, says, no, don't go near the fire, or don't touch that. So we're very attuned to that. So during the day, 3 times in the morning and 3 times after noon, write down what those thoughts that you've had. Like, is there a certain person that irritates you? Were you thinking something bad about them? Because the thing is, that stuff that we send out comes around like a boomerang and comes to us. So not only related to money, but anything, be very, very, very aware of what kind of thoughts you have, because the thoughts lead to words that we say, and those things lead to our actions. And if we do actions that aren't in alignment or that aren't positive, it's going to bring onto ourselves things that aren't positive.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, and so within those, be sure also to be thinking about, if you have those negative thoughts and words that come up around money, be sure to write those down to clear those and stop doing it.
And I know you have a free gift, which we're going to post the link to at morganaradio.com. And those of you listening, here's the secret. This whole thing has been videotaped also, so you can see what we look like and Jill's gorgeous living room and the expressions that we make. And you can also learn how to contact Jill and download the free gift. Can you describe what gift you have for our viewers?
Yeah. The gift is simply, it's a beautiful chart that has the 3 principles. One is make money your spiritual practice. The second one, enjoy your money. And the third one, spread it around. So that you can download that, put it where you're going to see it. You can make as many copies as you want so that you're constantly reminded. And then once you download it, you will also get an email that goes into the deeper description of how to live those things and practice them.
Fantastic. And this, by the way, this is important. Some people learn and absorb information through our ears. Other people, we use our eyes. Some of us use our bodies and need to feel it. And honestly, the more ways you can receive information, the faster you will learn and put it into practice. That's why, you use the stones, because that's learning principles with your body, and why you listen to this podcast, because you're learning with your ears, and why I also have a video, and Jill has created this great infographic so that you're taking it in through all your different senses. So we're just about out of time, and this has been so wonderful. So do you have just one last word of inspiration before we sign off?
Yes. 2 things that really helped me that might help people, your listeners, that helped me. One, love yourself. And the other one I would say is take out the trash, meaning take out the trash out of your head and you will live a much more beautiful and abundant life.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Thank you so much.